In July 2021, a man's leg broke, and with it, an entire era seemed to grind to a halt. He was the biggest pay-per-view draw in the history of the sport, the first fighter ever to hold 2 UFC titles at once. But after that night, he would not step back into the octagon for 5 years. And now, in July 2026, Conor McGregor returns. His opponent, the very man he beat 13 years ago, in only his second UFC fight, Max Holloway. But 13 years have placed these two men in completely different worlds. The story begins in August 2013, in Boston. Back then, McGregor was a near-unknown Irish newcomer, barely into his UFC run. Holloway was a 21-year-old from Hawaii, still building the early chapters of his career. That both of these men would one day become featherweight champions was, that night, something nobody could have guessed. McGregor won by unanimous decision, but there's a twist to that fight that's easy to overlook. Midway through, McGregor tore the ACL in his knee, and instead of backing off, he took Holloway down for separate times, controlling the fight on the mat. A man who wrestled his opponent to pieces on a torn-up leg, that night becomes the key to understanding this rematch. After that first meeting, McGregor shot up like a rocket. He conquered featherweight and lightweight at the same time, the UFC's first ever champ. Then crossed over to box the legend Floyd Mayweather, becoming a global icon far beyond the sport. But the road down from the summit was steep. The cold numbers tell the story. Since 2016, McGregor has managed just a single victory. Since October 2018, he has gone 1 win and 3 losses. And in 2021, in his trilogy fight with Dustin Poirier, his shin bone snapped, and his career itself hung in the balance. Meanwhile, Holloway walked the opposite path. He steadily built a Hall of Fame resume as featherweight's premier volume striker. And at UFC 300 he knocked out Justin Gaethje to claim the BMF belt, a special title that crowns the toughest fighter in the game. One man stood still for 5 years, the other fought for 5 years. That asymmetry is the first mystery of this matchup. Here's something that has to be underlined. 13 years ago, these two met at featherweight, 145 pounds. This time, they collide 25 pounds heavier, at welterweight, 170 pounds. For McGregor, welterweight is familiar ground. He has fought there several times before. The question mark is Holloway. In his entire career, this is his first fight at 170. And that's exactly the question analysts keep circling back to: who is Max Holloway at welterweight? Nobody knows the answer. Holloway's weapons are his relentless punch volume and a chin the sport calls legendary. In 37 professional fights, he has been knocked out exactly once, by Ilia Topuria in 2024. That's how durable he is. But moving up in weight comes at a cost. The body gets heavier, the speed drops, and, most importantly, there's the risk of getting hit harder than ever by a bigger man. And the man across from him can end a fight with a single punch. Layered on top of that is another storyline. Just this past March, Holloway lost his BMF belt to Charles Oliveira, outworked over 5 one-sided rounds. He walks into this fight desperate to bounce back. There's a reason this fight can't be consumed as a simple sporting event. McGregor's return arrives under a heavy shadow from outside the cage. First, the doping controversy. During his 2021 leg injury recovery, a US media report alleged that McGregor used banned substances while he was outside the USADA testing pool. Separately, he served an 18-month suspension for missed drug tests, so-called whereabouts failures, a ban that ended in March 2026. McGregor and the UFC firmly deny the banned substance allegations, noting that he has never failed a test and has been screened around a dozen times in 2026 alone, more than any other fighter on the roster. Second, and far heavier, in an Irish civil court, McGregor was found liable for assaulting a woman in 2018 and ordered to pay roughly €250,000 in damages. His appeal against that ruling was dismissed. On top of that, he has recently spoken openly about his struggles with alcohol. Which is why you hear it put this way: McGregor is selling America a comeback story, but back home in Ireland, they aren't buying it. In the States he remains a massive star, but the way the world looks at him is anything but unanimous. This fight is a contest in the cage, yes, but it's also a battle over one man's image. So how does the market see this fight? The movement in the betting lines is telling. Back in May, when the fight was first announced, Holloway was a heavy favorite. McGregor's odds ballooned as high as plus 420 to win. Essentially, it would take an upset. But as fight week arrived, that gap narrowed noticeably. Holloway remains the favorite, but the line has tightened to around minus 225, while McGregor has climbed to plus 170, even plus 180. What shifted the money? Belief in McGregor's still-live one-punch power despite the 5-year layoff, and a giant question mark hanging over a Holloway who just moved up a weight class. Right now, the market is quietly betting on the possibility of an upset. So how does this actually play out? The forks in the road are clear. First, McGregor's formula for victory. 3 things. 1. Power. McGregor's left hand has always been an equalizer that can end a fight in an instant. 19 of his 22 wins have come by knockout. As tough as Holloway's chin is, it has never had to absorb the power of a welterweight McGregor. 2. The early rounds. McGregor is a classic fast starter. His most dangerous moments come early. If he can make it short and violent, he has a real path. 3. The 2013 blueprint. He already knows how to beat this man. Takedowns. Holloway is a fighter who thrives on rhythm. Put him on his back, and that rhythm breaks. Holloway's takedown defense is elite, around 80%, but back in 2013, McGregor cracked it, putting him on the mat 4 times. That blueprint still belongs to McGregor. Holloway's path to victory, by contrast, comes down to one thing: drag it into deep water. Holloway gets stronger as the rounds pile up. His hand speed, his volume, his cardio, all of it climbs late. McGregor's most cited weakness is the exact opposite: his gas tank. Once that early explosiveness fades, McGregor has a history of sinking fast. Which is why most expert predictions converge on the same read: survive McGregor's early power, and Holloway's volume will eventually swallow him whole. In the end, this is a duel between one moment of destruction and the slow accumulation of pressure. At the pre-fight press conference, neither man gave an inch. McGregor declared, "My weight, my body, everything is at its best. My mind is sharper than ever. I'm going to prove the doubters wrong, and this weekend, I'm going to shut everybody up." Holloway's answer had teeth of its own: "Anyone doubting McGregor as washed up doesn't understand the situation. I'm ready to face the most dangerous version of McGregor I've ever seen." Then he added, "I'll either make sure he never thinks about coming back again, or put on a fight good enough to run it back at the end of the year." One man climbs in against a world that doubted him. The other climbs in respecting his rival's revival and vowing to end it. The man who once took his opponent down on a torn-up leg, and the man who lost to him that night, then went on to write a legend of his own. They meet again, in different bodies, in a different place entirely. Did 5 years erase the talent, or reawaken the hunger? The only answer lives inside the octagon at T-Mobile Arena on July 11th. So what's your call? A dramatic resurrection for the Notorious after 5 years away, or a cold, clinical full stop from a Holloway still in his prime? Drop your prediction in the comments, and if you don't want to miss fight stories like this one, hit subscribe and turn on notifications.